Hey everyone, it is Friday, February 19th, 2021. I'm Tyler Williams. I am going to be doing a little bit of a coding session, uh, working on Slipper's design system for GitLab digital experience team. Um, Purpose of this video is to sort of give primarily the rest of digital experience right now, give folks an idea of like what I have in my head for how to use slippers and build things for about.gitlab.com. Eventually, I hope that this sort of goes a little more far-reaching, so that either other GitLab team members or parts of the broader GitLab community can sort of get a sense of the direction, or at the very least, like my ideas on how to use this. And obviously, I'm excited for some discussion and disagreement about what the best practices are here. But I feel pretty strongly about some of the stuff that I'm about to show. So this is the what we're looking at right now is just the Figma file from Tina. And this is for the new blog template. And this screen right now is, there's a bunch of them here. This is the blocks. So these are sort of the individual, what in many ways, like I consider them components. I think we are not fully there on like what our nomenclature is for what a component is versus elements, molecules, atoms, all that sort of stuff, or at the very least, I'm not clear. So, take it with a grain of salt when I say component. I'm really just thinking about like discrete blocks of code I'm going to write in Vue. So I'm going to work on this pull quote, and let me show you what we got going on. So this is the design itself, right? And we are going to see it in Figma, and eventually it's going to end up living in Storybook, which is what we're looking at there. So yeah, let's hop right in. Ignore the screen you're looking at right now because it is not useful. So yeah, talking about this pull quote. So this is a new component, and I'm gonna pop into Slippers. Close my work notes file there. And so this is the Slippers repo. And so here's how I'm starting. So I can actually, I don't need the design up right now. So I can go back into the Storybook repository. I start with a story, and I'm going to drop this into components, although we can kind of, I have some folder structure here. I don't feel strongly about it. I almost kind of want to pull that out of the folder structure, but maybe in a different video we'll talk more about that, or in a different conversation. So for now, stories. So each story file, right now we're using the JS stories. We're not doing the MDX for these yet, although we could, or at least I'm not on my branch. Honestly, here's what I do: is I I copy paste. And then in components, I just name another one. So we're going to call this SLP blog pull quotes. I'm actually, I'm just going to call this a pull quote because I have a feeling that is going to be used outside of just the blog. I don't know yet for sure. So yeah, .stories.js. I literally just paste the other story in here, give it a little format there. And then so you'll already see. So before I even really change anything, the first thing I do is if you change the title. So this is in the default export, and so I call it like components. What is this? A pull quote. So if you change the title, you'll actually see in Storybook it pops open in the left here. So now that's pull quote. This now looks like I had an author avatar somewhere. I don't know where it went. Strange. Huh. Okay. Blog author avatar. Okay, we'll come back to that later. I wonder if it got all messed up in the live reloading here. I'm just gonna reload this page. Yeah, author avatar. So this is the story for the author avatar, and as you can see, it's the same thing in this pull quote. And in the left-hand panel is where I'm kind of clicking around there. So now I can actually start changing things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import something differently. So I'll import the component, which doesn't yet exist. So I'll trigger an error here, which is nice to do so that I can confirm that what I end up doing stops the error, right? So we'll call this SLP pull quote, and then we'll end up with that in the file name as well, SLP pull quote dot view. Okay, and then we'll get this error, which is excellent. It's exactly what I wanted. And now we can go to components, and we can create, sorry, my dog's playing with his squeaky toy, SLP pull quote dot view. So now we've got a view file. We'll still get an error because we don't have anything in it. It's a blank file, but it's a different error. So again, just seeing the progress as we go through there. So we'll start with a template, and this is a pull quote. Let's see what we got. So for this, my guess is that we'll probably have like, it looks like we've got some visual decorator element there, the quote itself, and then a source. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this in. Oh, there's an HTML element for this, isn't there? Block quote HTML element. Trying to be semantic. Oops, I just locked my screen by accident. Okay, block quote tag, quoted from another source. Perfect. Let's do it. So one of the great things about working this way is we can be really, really good about having appropriate semantics. Block quotes. Block quotes. I don't have my auto completion tag enabled in this project, I think. Okay, so we got a block quote, and then here, okay, let's see if they've got I want to grab like a full example. Oh, this is fine. Okay. I've like used this one before, and I feel like they sometimes come with footers, but that's plenty fine. I wonder if there's a block quote site tag. Block quote site. It's in MDN, block quote MDN. There's like a nicer full example that I like to refer back to that I feel it's got like a block quote. Yeah, this is what I wanted. Okay. Excellent. Okay. So block quote, and then we'll have a p tag, which will have some content here. Call that quotes. And then we'll have a citation site, and it looks like we've got in the Figma file, it says source site, and then how does the site work? So block quote itself takes a citation. We'll probably turn this into a bound variable, so it'll be like site, and it's like citation. Call that, and then interesting. Okay. I'm not sure. I would have assumed that the citation element has the ability to like specify the citation. Okay, so you just wrap an anchor link with the site, and we put the site up in the block quote thing. So it's not exactly as intuitive as I would have expected, but we'll use the citation as the href attribute. Format document. I like to do some formatting as I go. So cool. This will be basically the semantics here, right? Is we've got oh, and I'm gonna want an image for this quote. It'll probably end up being an SVG. I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it for now because what I'll probably do is pull this as an SVG into its own thing, but we'll come back when we're kind of doing the styling. This is really just the markup, and then we'll talk about wiring up the data. But love it. That looks great. I think that's it. Yeah, we got the quote itself, and then we'll have a citation. Cool. Excellent. And then, so these things here in view, we've got a couple things going on. So when you're in line in the markup, you can use the double brackets for data. And this, when it's not specified, it just assumes that you're talking about like a prop or a computed value. So we'll want to define that as a prop. Same thing. So these attributes, you can do the this colon is shorthand for vbind, which binds with view data-driven stuff. So what we'll end up doing is we'll have citation, which again we'll probably just make it a prop. So just make a little script block, export default, props. I like to do it alphabetically, so we'll do citation. The type it'll be a string, and it's not required because I can see how in many places we wouldn't have an actual link to cite it by. Okay, so we'll probably need to do some conditional stuff on this anchor link, but that's fine. We'll get to that. Up next is the quotes, which is also going to be a string. This will be required. Required true. And usually, I've had it before with required props in view. I once had a linter that would complain if I didn't provide a default value, so that's what I'm doing here. There we go. Nice little formatting. Cool, here it is. Super exciting, and we'll get to some of this other stuff. We'll get to touching it up as we go. But now we actually have a thing, and so if we go back into Storybook, we should have, that's what I want to do. I'm going to name this as well. We need the name because of how we export things. I should grab a linter or set up a linter to warn people if they don't add names. So the name of this will be SLP pull quote. There we go. So we can format that again. Excellent. Okay, and then so here, back in the stories, SLP pull quotes. So this error now is coming from just the copy paste stuff. So I'll change this pull quote. What we're doing here is we're setting up, so we've imported this file into our stories. So stories are in the stories folder under stories components. And then we've got the components view files up. So if you go up to directories, get to components, grab the pull quote, we get this. And then in our template, we're using this in the story. This comes as conventional from Storybook itself. And then, we give it, so here's what we do. We tell it, okay, hey, the components that you have available are SLP pull quote. We're going to define props, which basically takes arg types, and I'll show you where that comes into play. But props become the keys of the arg types that we pass in. And then we have a template, which would be how you would write it in the kebab case of view being converted to, kebab case. So you vbind the props, which we get from this. Don't worry if none of that, if that's a little murky, you can really just copy and paste this, and it will start to make sense as you play around with stuff, and when you get to customizing things. Cool. So up next we have this default. So that's where, if you look on the left, pull quote default is literally just coming from the fact that we've named this constant default. If I were to change it to something else, I have to change it there too, so we refer to it, but now we've got something else, right? And I've caused some weirdness going on with it, but we've got something else. So I'm going to change it back to default. I like default as a default. And then we bind the template to an empty object, and that basically gives us access to what's going on here. And then here are the args. We just grab, we can basically say, okay, I know what the props are. So we write up our example. So we have a citation, which in this case, so here's what I'm going to start with, because this will generally be an href, right, value. And maybe now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm actually going to change this prop name to href, because that's what it's going to be rendered at. That's the attribute that'll be rendered out here as, and it will be the citation attribute in the block quote, but I feel that's less commonly used than href, and I think that the idea here is it's linked to something, so I want to be extremely clear when people are using it. So let's call href, and we'll do the octothorpe as a good placeholder, and octothorpe is just my pretentious way of saying hashtag. And then we got a quote, and then I'll just grab the quote from here. Cool. I've run into this before when I've done pull quote and block quote styling, where it's a conversation of, I've had this conversation where it's do we force people to include double quotes, to include their quotations. In the past, I've kind of said yes, but it does get a little weird because either people like forget to do it and then you don't have them, or like sometimes if you're doing like a handful of layers of interpolation, it just becomes a hassle, right? So what I'm gonna do now is, so I took them out from the data here, and in my here, let me show you what's going on too. So in pull quote template, hey, look at that, we got this value, and this href will go to the octothorpe, which will bring us to this. If I were to do that manually, that's kind of what you would see. It's interesting. I wonder if that must have something to do with the routing that is bringing me to this iframe. But one way or another, this link is linked up, and you can see in the bottom, you can actually see the HTML. This is going to be really important because I'm building everything in Vue, and I think that we should, even when we are not going to like end up applying everything as Vue.js components, right? Like this component isn't going to get directly imported into the blog, but it gives us, when we use it in Storybook, it makes it super portable through Storybook. Eventually, we're going to look into using Vue.js as like a server-side rendering templating engine. And so like it's good to start here. And then finally, when we do this, we get this HTML, which is like, this is in itself super portable. So what I'll probably end up doing is taking this, right, and putting it in like an ERB template for the blog. And so we can, eventually it'll be a little bit more tied together. Right now we've got a little bit of overhead of some manual work we need to work on and do. But at least this gives us a really good example of like, hey, like here is the markup for doing a pull quote, right, in our system. And we can be really like explicit about how that renders out. We also get like all the cool like accessibility stuff that's built in. And then you can see here's the control. So if I wanted to, so this hopefully is kind of coming together. Over on the right side, these args here are telling controls to do something. So like this is coming from the control panel. It's dynamically bound, right? I think that's pretty cool. Thank you, Javi, for setting that up. So yeah, here we are. What was I doing? Oh, I was changing. I've locked my screen again. I was changing this so that pull quotes will always have quotation marks wrapped around them. We're going to hard code that, and all we're ever going to ask people to do is to drop in their drop in their text. And I pause there because so the live reloading is pretty good, but not everything re-renders as expected. So like these quotation marks, I expected them to be there when I made this change, and if I like pull out the last one, like we get the change up in the canvas, but we don't see it down in this control block. But if I refresh, we do see the change. So just something to watch out for. I think it's probably a matter of just like some configuration, or maybe some of these plugins like need to file an issue, or maybe they just will never do exactly what we want, and that's fine. Cool. So yeah, here we are. I think that's the markup, right? Yeah, that's the markup. So the next thing that I do in here is, I was talking with Tina, I like try and find what. So this is another piece that I expect will change in our process. I'm just kind of like pushing forward on this because I want to complete the blog templating task, and I'm hoping that this is a process that people can like, that we can chat about asynchronously. But anyways, I was talking to Tina about like finding what Slipper's components are making each one work, and I don't think this one is connected to any assets. Local components, blog post, Slipper's foundations. I'm still a little new to Figma, but as far as I can tell, I don't think that this is actually using. I don't see any components, so I'm just going to keep moving forward. If I did see, like if there was the Slippers Foundations, if we had one of these buttons in here, I would have gone back to refer to the Slippers Foundations file to build out what I'm about to do with our styling. But for now, I'm just going to kind of, again, move forward to get the ball rolling. So, cool. What do we got? Okay, but we do have, okay, here's what we do have. And so this is going to be, I've got a couple minutes left on what I want to do here. I want to show you. So we've got this block quote. We could do a style block in Vue. It'll work. Let's avoid that when we can, and I'll do another video that talks about why and how. And instead, I think the thing to do here is that we set up class names. So this will be SLP pull quote, and I'll show you why. So now, so I've set up this class on the block quote, and if I refresh the HTML, you'll see it show up here. So here's what this does. By not using the scope style blocks, we reduce our dependency on JavaScript. And basically, like if we use the Vue components to mostly define templating, perhaps a little bit of behavior. Basically, if we think of these Vue components as how we build out Storybook and make Storybook easy to build, we will give ourselves easy, like low friction ways to include the appropriate classes into about.gitlab.com or any other property. And so now that I have SLP pull quote, here's the next thing that I'll do. I go into styles in the project. You go into styles.css. We'll probably end up, I think this is going to end up getting pretty big, so we'll probably want to adjust it over time. But here, now I can say, cool, I've got .slp pull quote, and this is in post CSS, so that's why we get to use the fancy like apply stuff. I don't have a good syntax highlighter, so all those red lines are I haven't found a post CSS plugin that like lets me get rid of those errors. I've looked a little bit and it's just not there. So if anyone knows, let me know. So here we will apply. So this is where it starts to get really cool, right? Things start really coming together here because this, I won't talk about the quote symbol right now. I'll do that in a different video. This, the text color, is in this grayscale, right? Grayscale 333, which is configured. Again, thank you, Javi, for configuring this in our Tailwind config file. So in Tailwind, we have colors, we have grayscale, and then is 333 is the, okay, so I don't actually see it here. Interesting. I wonder what the label is on this. Grayscale. Interesting. Okay, well, I will do, I'm going to name this 333 because I don't know what's going on there. It doesn't match up. I expected to see like one of these named ones match up specifically with it, but I don't see that, and that's fine. We're still like everything is work in progress, right? So anyway, so if I define this as 333, and then if I do, and I think it's just because of the hex code, 1, 2, 3, cool. So now that's in our, and post CSS has to spin up again, but now that's in here, and now I can say apply SLP, I think text grayscale 333. Does that do what I want it to do? It does. Check it out. So this changed. So here's what's cool. SLP pull quote we define in our post CSS file, right? We're using that here for this block quote. It's configured in Tailwind, so we have all our utilities in one place, and we can maintain a ton of consistency. And this SLP denominator here comes from the prefix we added in the Tailwind config, and this class name itself is just if you were to like look up in Tailwind what text color, right? So these are like the default values that come with Tailwind. They won't work for us because for colors, we're just writing our own. If we use the extended keyword, we would get all of these too, but I think it makes sense. I think Javi made the right call by not using extends because we have to build this library up ourselves, which is smart. It'll have us make good decisions. But again, so, you know, basically I said, I follow the same pattern. Drop SLP in front of all of the utility styles. That's how we're sort of prefixing things. And then use, you know, this text dash gray But of course we have different keys here. We have grayscale and then -333. And then I can do that for all of these other styles that are going on here, having it italicized, the sizing itself. Gotta find the font size on this. What is this? 24. So I can go and find in the font size whatever rem value is going to map closely to 24. I wonder if I can change the units here. I don't yet know. Oh, I will not do this. Don't worry about that. I'm not going to mess with anything. Anyways, yeah, I think this is super exciting. And then we can basically use, again, we can use Storybook as this playground where we define these components. We use Vue as basically a templating engine. The other thing too is it gives us a really good sense, we get the ability to basically build out a true dependency graph on these things. And then we can make smart decisions as we're making modifications. And we don't have to worry about sort of some of the collision, the challenges of working on this stuff on the existing repo, which I know can be frustrating to develop on rapidly. And we can piece these things together too. So I'll show you one final thing, and then I'll make other videos too, but I want to keep this reasonably scoped. So I have template stories where I'm just pulling in, here I'll close this, in the template stories, I'm just pulling in this blog component. This blog component is a template in and of itself. This is a full view, basically a page, and you can see that's showing up here. So I can pull this out, right? And so that's gone. And now I could also say import slp pull quote from components slp pull quote dot view. We have to register it with our component here. Oh, and then we have to use it. And then so it's slp pull quote. The quote is something someone said one time. I'm not dynamically binding it because I literally just want to pass in the string to demonstrate it here. But yeah, and then so we can, and here's the cool thing. So we can mix and match, change the order of everything, it live reloads. So what I'm going to end up doing is building out these blocks that Tina has designed and defined. And then I will be able to make these pressure test templates, and I can do all the fun stuff in Storybook too for different viewports, right? Yeah, so that's my idea. Again, I know that there's going to be some speed bumps along the way. This doesn't 100% solve what we'll do with Middleman and how we'll actually pull this into about.gitlab.com. But because it gives us this HTML, which is robust and portable, right? I think that we can make some smart decisions on how to make things easy for us to begin. And eventually we'll move forward on being able to take a template like this, take a Vue-based template, and have it statically build so that we can stay, true to the static site generator that we know and love, and have a nicer developer experience. So yeah, I'll probably, I don't know, I got a bunch to do here, so I imagine throughout today I'll do a couple more videos, or maybe next week or something. I'd go a little bit slower when I make the video rather than when I'm just working, and I know we want to get this out the door, so maybe I'll come back at the end of the sprint once this thing is wrapped and do more recaps on it. Cool. Awesome. Thanks for watching.